Whoa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last Council Connections of 2021. And Dave Smith reminded me that when he started these sessions back, I don't know, it was a year and a half ago about, one plan was to include some council news. And we really haven't done that very often. We've mainly interviewed people. But I have some news for you. Just this morning, the members of the new council elected their officers for 2022. And they are President Michelle Cacavano, Vice President Carl Rodman. The recording secretary will be Joe Tim. So our new residents get right in there. Corresponding secretary June Feiner. And the representative to the board will be Tamar Opler. And today, I have the pleasure of introducing somebody that a lot of you probably know better than you know me. Here we have Christy, and I'm going to mispronounce your name here because I'm not good with names, but Christy Battistoni.
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly right.
And she's our Director of Finance. So Christy, would you like to tell us a bit about your background?
Sure. I'm from Pleasant Valley, New York, which is in Dutchess County, just across the river, and was born and raised there. And that's where my husband and I live now still and are raising our children. Of course, a little bit, I would say raised, since my youngest is 21. We have 4 children, 3 boys, 1 girl. I went to Arlington High School. I went to and graduated from Marist College with a degree in accounting. I worked prior to coming to Woodland Pond for 18 years at a skilled nursing facility in Rhinebeck called Ferncliff Nursing Home. We were a 328-bed skilled nursing facility. I started here at Woodland Pond in 2009, working in the cottage because we didn't have our CO to come into the building. So it's just amazing to me from the first time that I started when we walked through the apartments and did punch lists because it was still in the construction phase to where we are now. It's pretty incredible.
So you've been here from the very beginning.
Yep. I started in September of 2009. So 12 years. Is that right? Yep. I started originally, Tanya and I started together and our office was where HR is now. I handled accounts payable and I did some general, I can't even remember what my title was then, but I moved to the Director of Finance position in 2016. 13. So I've been 13, I believe. I love it here. I love being around the residents. I love the work. I love the people that I work with. It's a really great place.
So has Michelle Gramolia been your direct supervisor since you started?
So when I first started, we there was a management company called New Life. So I technically worked for a person, her name was Sarah Schrader, and she handled most of the financial stuff that I handle now offsite because they were located in New Jersey. Michelle was in the picture, but she was located at the hospital. And then she ended up coming on site. I can't even remember when she came on site. I think it might've been 13. And so since then I have been working directly under her.
And could you describe briefly the different aspects of your responsibilities here as Director of Finance?
Definitely. I'm in charge of the business office. Melissa and Yolanda both, we all work together. So I supervise them, so to speak. Melissa handles accounts payable now, and she handles all the billing, private billing of the residents. And when residents make payments, they come in to see her if they have any issues with their decline, their food, which tends to happen quite often. They would come in and see her. Yolanda does all of our Medicare billing, our Medicaid billing, secondary insurance billing, a lot of the billing that comes straight out of the health center. And she's great at that. Her history prior to being here was also in a skilled nursing facility. So she's well acquainted with that. I handle all of the monthly financial statement reporting. We have, I have Medicare cost reports, Medicaid cost reports, annual statements to Department of Financial Services, all those types of reports I'm responsible for. I also do all financial approvals for anyone that's interested in coming into Woodland Pond. I have to look at their bank statements, plus I plug it into with their actuarial life expectancy. I want to make sure that everybody has the funding for whatever contract they might be interested in, so that they have the funds to be able to live at Woodland Pond, pay their monthly service fees over their life expectancy. So I handle that. I handle the refunds when the refunds are payable, when someone passes away normally versus moving out. So I deal with the families and I send them a refund calculation so that they know whether it's going to be to the estate or to them individually. However, the refund designation form was set up by you, the resident. I meet with residents for many various issues. A lot of residents will come to me and want me to review their long-term care policy. If they have a long-term care policy, sometimes they get a letter in the mail that says that the long-term care policy, it's not going to increase in value and should they cash it out. So we review that. We call the long-term care. So I do that with them. Often residents have where they can change their insurance, because there's traditional Medicare, there's Medicare Advantage, and they'll be curious whether they should switch policies during the open enrollment period. So I'll meet with residents about that. I've met with residents regarding Medicare D plans and whatnot. So I'm always accessible. If a resident wants to email me or call me to set up an appointment to discuss anything like that, I'm open and available to do that.
Okay. Well, one of the things that Christy and I discussed beforehand was the question and answer part of this. And she agreed that anytime those of you in the audience want to ask questions, you should feel free to. So go ahead, right ahead, Betsy.
Do you plan the budget?
Yeah.
If you go up to the stage, you'll be on this cap.
Do you plan the budget and how does that budget work?
Our budget is done, well, it has to be in by November 1st every year to the Department of Financial Services, because that's when we determine whether we're going to increase monthly service fees. And then so we have to submit our budget. We get information, Michelle and I have discussions. We get information from our directors, because each director has their own budget for, so Tom would have snow plowing, everything related to maintenance. Rob would have it for environmental services. Sarah would have it for activities. They come to us with what they feel they need, and we work with them with what kind of, looking at the year before to see what maybe they had overspent and need to drop, or something where they were under. So we have conversations with the directors on that. As far as the revenue goes, obviously independent living, we determine what the increase might be for that particular year. And a lot of that is related to what's going on in the market as well. We look at Medicaid. I have various people on Medicaid and skilled nursing. So I'll try to find out what the rate is going to be as far as that revenue piece. We usually get our Medicare rates and what we're going to be paid through that. So that's all the revenue aspect of it. So it's a combined effort between the directors and what they need as far as the expenses go. And then we also allot money for capital purchases for the year.
So you get input from the directors of the different parts of Woodland Pond. And then is it a joint effort between you and Michelle to finalize the budget?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you, what is the state really interested in when they're approving that? How finely do they?
Well, they don't really have to approve our budget per se, because
Okay.
that's operational. We just have to have it into them. They have to approve the rates.
Do they look at the budget when they're approving the rates?
I have no idea.
Do they
I don't
ask
know.
you questions?
Never.
Okay.
No.
Well, every time when you've asked for approval for rates, have they just said, okay?
No. They've questioned, and they will want us to justify. We did a 4% this year. I think last year might have been 2.5%. So they want to make sure, it's really more in the contract rates that they have more questions versus the monthly service fee.
Interesting.
So this year we are eliminating our 90% plan. And we're going to go with a 75% plan. And we told them we're keeping the rates the same that they were this year. So it's just going to be the exact same entrance fees, but at 75% refundable. And then we had the 50% and the traditional, and they questioned, we were increasing the traditional quite a bit. And basically we said that we had no issue selling our contracts. I mean, we're going to have 11 settlements this month in December. So they will question, but as long as we can justify, they seem to not have an issue.
What do they want to know in order to feel it's justified?
They want to know if we feel that the market locally here, where we're located geographically, that we'll be able to sell our contracts.
So
our
do I
apartments.
understand correctly that they're mostly interested in whether or not we will succeed with those particular rates, not whether or not it's fair? Whatever fair is.
Right. I mean, I think I mean, if we said we wanted to raise your monthly service fees 10%,
Yeah.
they would shut that down. So they do care about whether it's fair. But I think they also want to know that as far as the entrance fees, that we're going to be able to sell the apartments.
Okay. So the entrance fees really are driven by the market.
Yes.
Okay.
And we actually went to them. This is pretty much the first time ever. We had so many Willow apartments that we couldn't sell. Obviously, this was a COVID year, so things were difficult, but we asked them for if we could discount the Willows 20% to try to sell them. So originally they agreed to let us sell 3 at the 20% discount, and we were able to do that. And we asked if we could just through the rest of the year use that 20%, and we were able to sell them all.
Wow.
So, well, we'll end December with 200 out of 201 units.
Okay. Now I know that for next year, and I think this was the case for this year as well, the increases or the changes for the different style apartments were somewhat different. Since there was less demand for the smaller ones, they don't increase as much than the price, the entry fee for the larger ones, right?
Right.
But our monthly fees have the same percentage increase overall.
Correct. We tried at one point in time to have different increases for different apartments, and that didn't go well. And that has never happened since. So it's
Okay.
been the same percentage across the board for a monthly service fee increase.
You say it didn't go well. Was it
The residents were not happy.
The residents. Oh,
Right.
okay. So it wasn't New York State.
No, the residents were not happy.
Interesting. So in a way, you're more influenced by residents than New
Well,
York
they
State?
actually brought it to a higher level. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's across the board now. Whatever the increase is, it's across the board. So, and entrance fees, yes, we definitely felt that we have a huge waiting list for the cottages. I probably have right now 20, 22,
Oh my
$10,000 wait list deposits that I have held in escrow. And most of them are cottages, but if they're not cottages, they're oaks and dogwoods. So all those units, there's just such a demand. And then the smaller units, we don't want to necessarily increase it in much as in price because
Okay, so you're in talking about the budget. One question that occurred to me is, do you have any controls in place to try to keep the different departments adhering to the budget?
so anytime a department head wants to make a purchase, so I'll use Sarah, for example. So say that you want to purchase a new dance floor for the residents. They want to have a dance floor in here. Residents would probably be talking and saying, we're interested in purchasing this. So they would need to go to whichever director would be responsible for that area. So if it was something like that with resident services, they would go to Sarah. If it was something related to Tom's department, they would go to Tom. And then we have what's called a PRF, purchase, it's a purchase form. And what Sarah would have to do would be to fill out the top, list what general ledger account, what expense line of her budget that purchase is going to go towards. She lists what the item is, what the cost is. She lists what her budget is and what's available in her budget, and then what the cost of this new item is. It then comes to me, so I look at to make sure she still does have that money available in her budget. And then it goes to Michelle, who would determine whether she's the final say on whether that's going to be purchased. So yes, we have a process for any kind of purchase.
So if a group of residents wanted a new, well, you said dance floor, but let's think of another example.
I know, I'm trying to think.
Well, I know sound system is something a lot of us
Right,
have
right.
talked about for a long time, but if a group of residents want some major item, what should they do?
So if you could figure out which department, you could be talking about a capital purchase too. So is this a large ticket item?
Yeah,
Are we assuming that you're a large ticket item? So that would basically be coming out of our capital budget. So again, I would suggest that you're going to like sound system would be more like a Tom thing and have a conversation with him. And then he would have to go through the process of getting it priced out to see what it would cost. And then it would go through the process. I would look in the capital budget to see where we are with what's been spent, what's available. And then it would go to Michelle and she would have that conversation with Tom. And then potentially if there's residents that are really pushing for this and they would make a determination, well, are we going to purchase that now? Is it necessary? Is it where we are with what our funds are, that type of thing. And then if it's approved and then the purchase gets made.
what if it's a small ticket item? Like if Pondeliers needs some money in order to, I don't know, get new music or
That's
something.
we use those PRF forms for all purchases. So a director still needs to fill it out, get the approval in order to make the purchase. So that's how directors purchase anything here. They have to fill out those forms.
But the residents need to go to the director of the area.
Yes.
That oversees whatever it is. they're
Right, because only the
interested in.
director can put in the request for the purchase. It's almost like we don't use a PO system. If anybody's ever heard of a PO system. Right, purchase order system, depending on, yeah. So we don't use a PO system. We have PRF system, purchase request form. So, and then we track that. And then when the invoice comes in for that purchase, it gets signed off on by the director, comes to Melissa and she pays the invoice.
What if a group of residents wanted there to be a new job title? Ones I can think of is, well, couple of years ago, there was a push for a fitness person.
Instructor, right?
And so what was the process that you went through?
As far as, because then you're talking about an FTE, that would be a conversation with HR and Michelle. Because that would be bringing a new employee on. So that's different than, we don't use a PRF form for that.
Yeah. But can that happen anytime during the year, or does it have to happen prior to the budget?
I mean,
For
we have
the
a,
following year?
we normally have a budget set for FTEs, but there's certainly been times where we've added positions through the year, during the year.
Yeah.
Full-time equivalent. We just use that instead because we have, say you have two part-timers and they're working 0.5 or half time equals one full-time equivalent. Sorry, when I said that, I didn't even know if you knew what I meant when I said
know what
FTE.
it was, but
Okay.
yeah, it's, now, in our discussion prior to this, Christy mentioned that there are things that residents have some responsibilities for that we aren't always on top of. And it turns out I was totally guilty of one of her examples. Last week, I received in the mail a new health insurance plan card, and I took it out and I removed the old one. I put the new one in my wallet and didn't think anything more about it. What else should I have done?
That's huge. Really, when your health insurance changes, your Medicare D, your secondary, again, even with Medicare, everybody got new numbers not that long ago. They changed the whole system. It used to be your social security number, and then they changed them to be different numbers and letters. Anytime any of your insurance information changes, if you can get us copies of your cards, we upload them into the system. Because if you end up going to the health center for anything, or even a short-term rehab, it's really crucial that we have your updated information as far as your health insurance goes. I would also say the same thing with your renter's insurance. Everybody is supposed to have renter's insurance on their apartment. You could leave your sink on and flood your neighbor. Your insurance is what's covering your cost of contents if you're damaging any of your own property. And as far as, and the liability is important as well. So everyone is supposed to have, per contract, renter's insurance. And I mean, I've had people where they've stopped paying it and it's lapsed, and then there was an issue. So, and if you change plans, I mean, renters is not very expensive, 100, 150 bucks. I don't think it costs that much, but it's supposed to be intact. And if you change it, you need to let us know. I'm trying to think what else.
So what if I let my renter's insurance lapse and somehow I do something that messes up my neighbor's
Yeah.
place?
You are financially responsible.
So I have to pay for it out of pocket.
Correct. I've had that happen.
That's not so.
I mean, and as well, technically people are supposed to have Medicare and a secondary insurance, or some people have Medicare Advantage and it's kind of wrapped together. But you are supposed to have a second, if you have traditional Medicare, you're supposed to have a secondary policy. And I've seen people that have let that lapse too, but by contract, we could technically get one for you and you'd be responsible.
So you don't really check up on us to make sure we have this renter's insurance or the secondary supplemental health.
Just
care?
by mentioning periodically maybe in a Chanticleer or something, that type of thing. Like I've mentioned, refund designation forms. People, when they first come in, if they have a contract that has a refund, how you're going to have that designated, whether it's going to your estate or a trust or your children. And I've mentioned a few times if people want to come in and update those, and we've updated them a few times over the years. And people change their minds. Sometimes they want it to go to their estate. Sometimes they want it to be named to their individual children. So I like to have new forms on file. So I'll mention that, come and check to see if it's what you want. And if you need to make any changes, that type of thing. So no, I don't have any way. I mean, we wouldn't have the staff to check everybody's renters. And so I kind of have to put that onus on you to, keep us updated with that. Dave?
Well, Joan, I got the same card you did. I got it in the mail just the other day, and I did the exact same thing. You just swapped it out of the wallet and forgot about it. So I'll get better. Number one, I didn't know you do so much with the rest, health insurance and et cetera. So good. I didn't know that was available. I just have a different question though. Is 2 or 3 years ago, the finance office solicited different committee chairs for budget requests for the coming year, which might have been 2,000 a year going into 2,000,
Right.
and that stopped. And was any money ever awarded, and did we misspend it, or you just thought that wasn't a good idea?
So are you talking about when we used to kind of do wish lists and
Yeah.
residents?
For the committees, not for the departments, but for committees, yeah.
Right. I think we did it prior to the COVID year, and we didn't do it. I mean, we certainly can do that. I mean, I think people also thought that by doing that, that meant that what they put down or what was on there was going to happen. And that wasn't the situation. It was kind of just getting an input, getting a feel for what people were interested in, but it wasn't going to be automatically purchased, all those things. So, I mean, we could potentially go back to that, but as long as the message is that this is what you're interested in, but if it's something that you really want to have purchased, you have to then go to that director when the time comes and get them to price that out and go through the processes in order to have that actually purchased. And again, if we have a $500,000 capital budget, it's a first come, first serve. So, and obviously we always say like resident safety items come first overall, and then more elective, or for lack of a better word, that would be on the last end of what our capital purchases would be for.
Right. And during COVID, the discretionary spending pretty
Right, it was
much
out the
shut
window.
down. Yeah.
Right.
But you also deserve credit for how well you handled the governmental loan applications.
Actually,
'cause
that's probably I have to say, I think that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud about for myself, only because I got both of them waived quickly. And there was a lot of talk initially about, oh, should you wait or file to have it waived? And so the first one that we got in 2020 got waived, where we were able to keep all the money in 2020. And then the next one that we got in March of 21, that got that waived basically in May of 21. So, I mean, they were both $1.67 million. So, I mean, that
And it
was
made a huge difference. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Meaning, so it was considered a PPP, it was a loan. So we got a loan, but then you were able to submit a lot of documentation, and then potentially they would let you keep the money and you would not have to repay the loan. And so for both of them, so
Do I understand that basically you had to document that you were using the money for
I had-
employees?
I had to document a lot. A lot was, they wanted to make sure that you were keeping people on staff and not letting people go. So a lot of it was that showing that you didn't lay anybody off, that type of thing. But the information I had to supply them was just overwhelming to get the loan.
And you did it
So,
successfully.
yeah, I'm very happy about that. That was huge for me personally. I felt really good about it. So.
Other questions? Are there other things you would like us to know about you or your job or what we should be doing?
Well, I mean, I love this community. I think Woodland Pond is an amazing place. I'm happy my parents are here. I love the way residents gather around and support each other. And I'm just, Sandy and Harold House. I don't normally actually mention that too often. So yeah, so my parents moved in 3 years ago. My father's now in skilled, my mother's still in independent living. But I'm thankful that one can be one place. And I think that's the beauty of continuing care retirement community, that you can literally be under the same roof and not have to drive to a local nursing home or whatever to see your spouse. So, yeah, I just think it's a wonderful place. It's easy to work someplace and love what you do when you're just vested in it and when you love the community. So. And anybody, anytime, any questions, email me, call me, whatever, if you want to meet about any such issue, really. I'm available. And we have new offices. I'm sure people know. We were moved out of the administrative suite and we are where the old conference room was. And it's nice. It's nice because there's a lot more space. I like it for, I can wheelchairs in my office. It was hard to do that before. And it's quiet because we don't have the traffic that we would have in the administrative suite. But, well, we don't have heat right now. Yeah, but that's going to be fixed. Tom says that's in the works and the parts are coming. But yeah, we sit there with our coats and our gloves in the morning and my heater right on my chair in front of my desk. But I know it's temporary. So.
Well, thank you very much and happy holidays to everybody from council.